Welcome to this pre-recorded class. It's going to be an unedited version, so I hope all goes well. Today we are going to work with gradients. Let's start by creating a new file or a new artboard. So I'm going to go File, New, and I'm just going to choose an A4 page, and I make sure that my unit measurement is in millimeters and my orientation is landscape, and then I click OK. Then I'm going to choose the star tool. So I already have the flyout options. It is found under the rectangle tool. You'll get the flyout options, and there you'll find the star tool. You just click on that little white triangle in the corner of that tool. It indicates to you that there are other tools similar or like-minded loaded below it. So there's a flyout, and then you just release that flyout. I'm going to choose my star tool, and I'm going to start, and I'm just going to click on the center of that artboard, and I'm going to make sure that I have a 6-pointed star, and then I'm going to click OK. I'm going to choose my selection tool. I'm going to hold the Shift and the Alt key on my keyboard, and I'm going to drag the star just a little bit bigger. Okay, I think that looks good. And just want to okay. And then of course I want to save my file, so I'm going to go Control S or File, Save, and then I'm going to make sure that I'm going to save it in a place where I can find it again. So this is exercise 7, gradients, and I'm going to just title it of today, so I know which one I'm working in, which one is my active file. And then I'm going to duplicate the star. I'm going to create a second star that's going to be a little bit smaller. So I'm going to choose Control C or Edit, Copy, and then Control F or Edit, Paste in front. Didn't seem to copy. Edit, Copy, Edit, Paste in front. Alright, now I have two shapes identical to one another on top of each other, and I'm just going to hold the Shift and the Alt key, and then I'm going to drag this second star inward until about there. I think that looks kind of good. And I'm going to I'm just going to swap the fills so both have a black fill and no stroke. Actually, I'm going to fill my smaller star in another random color. This is just so that I can ensure that the smaller star is indeed in front of the bigger star behind it. Okay, then with both of these stars selected, I just drag with the mouse touching both shapes, and then both of them will be selected. Then I open my Pathfinder tool, and I'm just going to choose minus front. And now the yellow star has disappeared because it cut it away. Okay, now I'm just going to display my ruler. So you find that under View Rulers or Control R, there are rulers, show rulers. Okay, I just want to see quickly, I'm looking for a specific line. So I'm going to rotate mine a little bit so that that inner line converses a bit more horizontally. Okay, I'm pretty close. Alright, okay, there. It's always difficult to... Okay, that looks pretty close. All right, so I just used the selection tool, and then when you get to with the edge or the corner, you'll see it makes a natural curve, and then I rotated it sort of a free transform so that it aligns to a horizontal line, because the next thing we want to do is we're going to choose the rectangle tool. I'm going to zoom in a little bit closer, and now I'm going to use this guide that I dragged here, and I'm going to drag a rectangle that covers that space. I'm also going to fill it in another random color just so that you can see what I have done. So it must look like so. And then I'm going to select these two again. And now we want to cut out this section. So you just choose minus front from the Pathfinder panel again. Alright. Then you're left with a shape that looks as follows. Okay. Now we want to divide this shape into sections. So we are going to change this shape into a no fill and a black stroke only. So all I need to do is I just swap my fill and my stroke options. Okay, so there you can see it. I now have a no fill there on the left, no fill, black stroke. I'm going to also zoom in a little bit. I'm going to use the line tool or the line segment tool. It's located just below the type tool, and I'm going to just drag from one corner to the other corner a small little line like so, and then here in this corner as well, from the outer corner to the inner corner or vice versa, it doesn't matter, but in that space also 2 lines. Alright, so that the star shape looks now as follows. And I'm hitting Control S to make sure that I am saving everything that I have done. Okay, now I must make sure that I am selecting the star shape plus the 2 lines. So these 2 lines, holding Shift key, selecting the other line and holding Shift to select the shape. And then I'm going to use the Live Paint Bucket tool. Oh. Okay, so now make sure that your shape is selected with your 2 lines, and then you're going to navigate to the Live Bucket tool, which is located here under the Shape Builder tool. There you'll find the Live Bucket tool. Then you're just going to click on any random color, and then you're going to click on an area to create a shape space. So I'm going to select another random color, and then I'm going to create my second shape and my third color. Alright, there I've created 3 shapes sections. Okay, then I click on the selection tool again, and then then with the star selected, we go to Object, Expand, and we make sure that Fill and Stroke is selected, and we say OK. Then we can ungroup it, so Object, Ungroup. So now we'll have them separate. They're still grouped. I'm just going to ungroup it again. Object, Ungroup. There we go. Alright. Now we have 3 separate shapes that we can start to work with. For now, I'm going to select them, and I'm just going to remove my guide because I'm not going to need it again. I'm going to select it, and I'm going to remove the black stroke to none. Let me to see why are you not... Ah, okay, I see what is happening here. I'm just going to move the star to the side because we are actually going to use it again. So I already have a duplicate. Alright, so now I'm left with my 3 shapes filled with solid colors at the moment. I'm going to select the top shape first, and then I'm going to go here to my gradients panel, and I'm going to choose a linear gradient, and I'm going to change the angle to 45 degrees, and then I'm going to alter the colors of this gradient. So at the moment it runs from, sorry, just have to make sure that the fill is selected. Come back 45 degrees. From the moment it runs from white to black, so we wanted to go from purple to pink, so I'm going to double click on this white box. The swatches panel is going to appear. I'm going to select a purple color from my swatches panel. I'm going to click on this gradient slider that is the black box, and then I'm going to select a pink. Alright, a nice hot pink. Alright, that looks good. Okay. Now I'm going to add, you can, in any gradient, you can make very complex gradients. They don't always need to be one color flowing into another color. You can actually have 3 or 4 or 5 colors there. So I'm going to add another gradient slider just by clicking below this color bar, and you're going to see a new box, or it's called a gradient slider, appears. And I'm going to move its location. I roughly nearly got to 50%, but I'm moving it to 50 so it's nicely in the middle. Then I'm going to double click on that box to add a lighter purple. So I'm just going to use a in-between color to make this gradient more evenly. Alright. Okay, now we can move on to the next section. So this right section, we're also going to apply a linear gradient, but this time the linear gradient runs not at a 45-degree angle but at a 90-degree angle, and we are going to keep on using these 3 points, and we're going to let it run, bleed from red, orange, and then yellow. So I'm clicking on the first slider and I'm going to change that to the red. I'm clicking on the second one, I'm changing that to the yellow, and I'm clicking on the third one to change that to yellow. Alright, that looks good. And then I want this yellow at the bottom and the red actually at the top. So I'm just going to click in the gradient panel below these 2 squares, which shows me the fill and the stroke. There's the reverse gradient option. I'm just going to click it and it's going to reverse the position of the gradient. It's just basically going to flip it. And then I'm going to select the third shape, and we are going to fill this from with blue, so from dark to light. So again, I'm going to use my options here, my linear gradient. This time the angle can be 0 degrees. I'm going to let it run from a quite a light color, so a very light blue to a mid blue, and then a dark blue. Alright, so now our shape star looks like this. I'm going to save it to make sure that I have everything. Alright, now we can relocate to this previous star with the no fill and the black stroke that I pushed onto the workspace. I can bring it back to the artboard. I just make sure it's selected over the shape colors. And then I'm going to change the stroke width to 2 point, and I'm going to make sure the cap is round and the join is round. Alright, that looks good. With all the outlines still selected, I now go to the gradients panel again, and this time I'm going to, under type, I'm going to choose a radial gradient, and then I'm going to change the gradient stops from black purple to white. So I'm going to remove one gradient slider for now. We're actually going to bring it back in a second, so you might think I'm going to redo the same work. I'm going to choose a purple, and then I'm going to the color panel. The purple just gives me a pre-loaded look of a type of color that I want, but I want a purple that's a lot darker. I kind of like that look. That looks good. I'm going to, alright, going to use that, and then the other side must be white. Okay, that looks good color-wise. Okay, and then we're going to add 2 more color stops. So we're going to ultimately have 4 gradient slider color stops on this gradient slider color bar. Alright, so I'm going to move this position. I'm going to add a stop. And then I'm going to add a 4th stop. And this one is going to be white, black, purple. Alright, I'm going to make sure, okay, so my first gradient slider's position is going to be roughly at around 30%. This one should be 66 is good. Okay. Okay, optically that looks good. Alright, so I'm choosing my second gradient stop, color stop, is at 33%. The third one is at 66%, and of course the 4th is at 100%. Alright, then we can now, okay, that gives it just a bit of pizzazz. Now we can group everything together so that we have the strokes and the shapes as one item, selectable item. Then I'm going to go back to my rectangle tool. I'm going to choose the rounded rectangle, and I'm going to draw a square, a rounded rectangle square. I'm going to use the direct selection tool to round off the corners a little bit more. I'm going to remove the stroke, and I'm going to fill it with a very dark, like a navy blue. So let's go and choose that blue, and then once again I'm going to add a bit of black to it. That looks good. Object arrange, send to back, so I just send the rounded rectangle to the back. Alright, I think that looks good. And then I'm going to select both, and I'm going to use the align tools just to horizontal align center and horizontal vertical center. Alright, and that looks really good. Okay, now we want to create 2 more artboards. So we want to create 2 files that are smaller than our initial design. And because we are going to create icons of this star, obviously now we are working in a print document, so we're going to have to change the measuring increment. Just going to save it, Control S. I'm going to go to under Edit, Preferences, and then I go to units. And there under general, it's now millimeters, and I'm going to scroll down on until I get 2 pixels, and then I say OK. Then I go to my artboard panel, and I'm going to create a new artboard. And obviously now this one is the wrong size, it's too big. I'm going to choose the artboard tool, then it's going to make this artboard editable, and I'm going to alter its size to 180 by 180, and I can move it a little bit closer. Okay, that looks good. And then I'm going to create a third artboard, and I'm choosing the artboard tool again so that I can edit the size of this third artboard, because I want this 125 pixels, 125 by 125. And I click enter, and I'm just going to move them so that they're nicely aligned. And then I click on my selection tool to deselect the artboard tool. Alright, this looks good. Then what I now can do I haven't grouped them together, so I'm selecting the rounded rectangle and the star, and I'm going to go Control G to group it, and then I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to move it to the second artboard, and then I go want to check where is that. Alright, I go to my transform panel. Okay, it wasn't loaded, so I just found it under window transform. Alright, and then I change the width and the height to correspond to the artboard size. So the first one is 180, and then I just click 180, and it will automatically resize it very close to what I want it to be. Okay, and then I duplicate it again, and now I'm on artboard 3, and I'm going to make this 125 so it gets resized again. Alright, and then I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Somehow my rounded rectangle altered too much, and I'm going to do the same for this one. I'm just using the direct selection tool to transform the edges so it's a bit more in relation to the rest of the icon. Alright, come on. Okay, so there we have our 3 artboards, our original star design, and then the second artboard is 180 by 180, and the third one is 125 by 125 pixels. Okay, so now we can choose the second, so we can now export these. So I'm going to go File, Export. Wait, cancel. File, Export as. Dot .png. Okay, export as a .png. I can say use artboards. Yours will look a little bit different because you have a newer version of Illustrator. That's why this looks a little bit different. So all you need to do is just make sure that your output file is a PNG file. You can rename this to make it suit, and then I'm going to click on Use Artboards, and I'm going to say All. This is going to create a PNG file of artboard 1, 2, and 3 respectively. And then I can say Export. And then when it gives you your options, your resolution should be 150 ppi, so we want a medium resolution. We want our background color to be transparent, and then you click OK. Alright, and okay, that is section 1 of our exercise done. Then I want you to create a new file, File New. It's going to be a print document again, an A4 size artboard. I'm going to start again with millimeters, and I'm just going to make sure it's got landscape orientation, and I'll say OK. Alright. Okay. Now I'm going to copy this star that is grouped, and I'm going to drag it to this new document without the blue background. So I'm just going to go Control C or Edit Copy, and then I navigate out of it. I navigate to my new artboard, and I just say Control V, and then I'm in the center, align it to the center of this new artboard. Okay. Alright, you're just going to create, like I did, another star, a 6-pointed star, that is a little bit bigger than your first star design. And you're going to move it behind by going Object Arrange, Send to Back, behind this multicolored star. Then I'm going to click on this, it's now currently a black star, but I'm going to change the color to also this blue color that you see here. Right. I'm just going to bring the swatch into this document. Just quickly, I'm just going to use the eyedropper tool, select it here, and I'm just going to select that blue. Alright, now I'm sure I have the exact blue as with my black rectangle. Then I select the star, I select the direct selection tool, and then you'll see these little circles appear, and all we're going to do, we're just going to round it up a little bit. Oh, that looks good. Alright. Next up, we're going to create a shadow. Sorry. Alright, next up we're going to create a shadow. So we're going to use the ellipse tool, and I'm going to draw a shape. I think that looks kind of good for what we need. Alright, then I'm going to add a gradient fill. So for now it's going to be a radial gradient, and this is going to be in reverse. So we can have from this dark blue I'm actually going to now save this dark blue as a swatch. There at the top, create new swatch like we did before. And now when I'm back to my ellipse with a gradient, I can go to the gradient panel and I can double click on this color stop and I choose my dark blue, and then I have the white below it. Okay, that looks good. Then I click on the white, I make its opacity 0%. You could also do it there, just 0%. So now it's going from dark blue to transparent. And then I'm going to use the gradient tool here on the left hand side to actually manipulate this shape. So I'm dragging this circle into an ellipse, and then you can see what happens. It changes that selection into more of like an oval. I'm just going to drag it down so it's at the correct point. That looks good. Now I'm going to duplicate this shadow. We can go again, Control C, Control F, and then we want to change collectively their opacity. So we're going to go to the transparency panel and we change that opacity to 80%. Alright, and then what you're going to do is you're going to move one of them behind. So I'm going to select only one, so I deselect it by clicking on the workspace, and then I clicked one star shape and I say Object Arrange, Send to Back. Alright, so now you kind of have a bit of like a ghost image. Alright, that looks good. So this star shape is kind of nestled in between. Okay, there we have it. Now I can select everything. I can group it together, Control G. Okay, and then I'm going to create another artboard. I'm going to choose the artboard tool to show me the options. I'm going to turn this into a landscape, and I'm going to say OK. And I'm going to place a image as a mock-up here. I'm just going to resize it. And I'm just going to make it fit nicely, so I'm just going to clip it in a clipping mask. Alright, okay, so there's our first one. Okay, so I'm going to duplicate my star. I'm going to drag it over onto this second artboard. I'm going to say Object Arrange, Bring to Front, and then I'm going to resize it. Again, hold the Shift and the Alt key, and I drag it from one corner and I drag it smaller so it will fit onto the center of that screen. I'm just going to eyeball it. Okay, that looks good. Alright, very nice. And then I'm going to create a third artboard, and I'm going to bring in my next photo. Just want to see. Okay, this is also too huge. Hold the Shift key and I drag it from one corner, bring it in. Okay, and I'm also just going to clip it. You don't need to worry about that. I just want it to present nicely. Alright, and then I'm going to drag my star again. Hold the Alt key, drag it to this third artboard object, arrange, bring to front, and then I'm going to hold the Shift and the Alt key to drag it smaller. Now I'm going to try to make it fit close to these icons' sizes or dimensions. Let's just see. I think that looks kind of in relation. Alright, let's see. Okay, that looks good. Alright, that's it. We can save this document. I see I haven't saved it yet. Okay. Right. And then we say OK. And then we can export these artboards as PDFs. And then we have completed exercise 7. This will conclude the end of this pre-recorded class. So thank you for joining me, and I hope that you will enjoy following along, making this star icon, and then I'll see you again next week. Bye!